いるよね。ちょっと寄ってみたんだけど。
Our story continues with our main character, Ale. He is trying to save Princess Fall from the evil Prince Netulus. A great celebration is happening as the marriage of Netulus and Fall is drawing near. Netulus is confident in his plan to marry the princess and be king. He wants to continue his scheme of using the fake sacred sword to subjugate Magus and all the other kingdoms. For a bad guy, he does talk too much and really expects to win. He enters the room where Princess Fall is. Does he not know it's bad luck for the groom to see the bride before the wedding? He praises Fall for her gown and asks her to come with him. She tells him that she will just follow in a while. As he leaves, Fall dismisses her maid as well. She recalls his father's advice to marry someone she loves regardless of social class, since her happiness is important. But now as a princess, she has to fulfill her duty. She closes her eyes as she speaks Al's name. In the meantime, Ale and his group have entered the kingdom. Through the back gate on a wagon, they sneak into the alley as they observe the tight security around the place. Al is, however, confident in his disguise as a farmer. Helen and Ruri try to show Al that they might stand out, but Al refuses to listen. Al explains his plan to rescue Gazelle's girlfriend from the castle, take her to the church where the wedding is, where they will expose the fake magical sword. He confidently goes out of the alley and is immediately stopped by a guard. Al tells the guard that he is delivering vegetables to the palace. Al smiles as his plan is foolproof while the girls are doubtful. The guard sounds the alarm and they chase Al and his group for being suspicious persons disguised as farmers. Ruri explains to a puzzled Al that it is suspicious for farmers to deliver direct to the palace. Wow, for a farmer who has been trading in the capital, this should be basic knowledge. I guess Al is not that observant. Helen decides to improvise and uses her dragon arm to swing Al towards the castle to save Gazelle's sweetheart. Al crashes into a tower where Gazelle's love is. Guards storm into the room, but Al grabs vegetables from his backpack. He charges up and rushes at the guard. He uses his speed to stuff vegetables in the guards' mouths, incapacitating them. He explains the situation to Gazelle's girlfriend, who until now has not introduced herself or told Al about the ball chain around her leg that prevents her from escaping. Al carries her off and rushed out of the tower, pursued by soldiers. He meets up with Helen and Ruri. The trio chatted about their plan, not minding the soldiers chasing after them. They do eventually realize this and run away from the soldiers. They arrive outside the church as the bells ring. Helen and Ruri encourage Al to protect Princess Fall. Al, on his part, decides to compliment how good they look in farmers' clothes. You know it's good to compliment girls, but you gotta have the right timing, Al. He goes to the church, while the two girls rush toward the swarm of soldiers. From outside the city, Postman Rix notes that it is time for him to act. Inside the church, the king asks Fall if she is sure about her choice. He can still stop the wedding. Fall assures him that it is for Magus and goes to the altar. Outside, Helen and Ruri have reversed their charge and are now being chased by the soldiers. The priest does the marriage rites and Fall says I do. Netulus gives her several assurances of how her life would be better with him. Really, for a bad guy, he does talk a lot. He moves in for the kiss as Fall closes her eyes and thinks of Al. Suddenly, the church door hits Netulus before he gets to kiss Fall. Al dramatically enters the church and greets a wide-eyed Fall. Netulus steps between him and Fall as he realizes that he is the Al that he heard Princess Fall speak of. He accuses Al of trying to kidnap the princess, but Al says Netulus is the true villain. He tells everyone that the magical sword is fake. Everyone is shocked, but Netulus laughs it off and accuses Al of trying to ruin the wedding. The king also is shocked at the revelation as he, himself, witnessed the power of the sword scaring the monsters away. Netulus asks if he can prove that the sword is fake, and Al tells him he can. A soldier rushes in and tells the prince that a swarm of monsters is attacking the city. Unbeknownst to them, this was Postman Rick's doing. As the monsters surround the church, the people inside demand that the prince uses the sacred sword. Netilus calls Gazelle to bring the sword but sees him hugging his still nameless girlfriend. Postman Rix appears and notes that Gazelle is busy, so he has brought the sword. He tries to hand it to Netilus, but he hesitates to touch it. Al grabs the sword and once again calls the sword a fake. The people still do not believe him, so he throws the sword at a monster who split it in half. This makes believers out of the audience. The king demands an explanation from Netilus, but Gazelle tells everyone Netilus planned and staged everything. Gazelle blows his flute and the monsters withdrew. He explains that Netilus threatened him and had him send monsters to various countries. He would then withdraw the monsters once Netilus raised the fake sacred sword. He explains that the flute he uses can control the demon kind and it can only be played by a demon. Netilus laughs menacingly and declares that the country is already done for. He had sent a large swarm of monsters the night before to Megas. He had used monster carcasses to lure the monsters, so he did not need the flute or Gazelle. He says that it's too late, but Helen and Ruri come in and declare that Magus will not fall. They had trained the adventurers after the last monster attack, and they know that the adventurers will defend Magus. The king cries upon hearing his subjects defending the city. Al tells Fowl that she need not sacrifice herself to save Magus. Soldiers come piling into the church. Netilus laughs again and orders them to arrest Al, but they instead throw down their weapons. Helen and Ruri had explained to them Netilus's plans and they realized how evil he was. Netilus gets mad and takes out his sword. He rushes at the king, but Al throws a radish-like vegetable that stops the attack. He punches Netilus and he falls. After everything is settled, Fowl rushes towards Al, hugs him, and declares her love for him. This shocks everyone, but Ruri recovers and demands to know if the princess knows Al personally and what their relationship is. Al stammers and explains that they do not have a relationship and asks Fall to let him go, but she refuses. Ruri calls Al a womanizer. The king thanks Al as this is the second time he has saved him. He congratulates Al and welcomes him to the family. The king leaves as Al struggles with Fall and Ruri, who continues to scold him. Postman Rix hands the king a message they had intercepted that had outlined the plan. The king realizes that Rix is part of the shadow puppets. Rix informs him that there is someone who was behind Netilus scheming behind the scenes. He advises the king to be careful. After a few days, peace returned to Magus. The guild master congratulates Ale and thanks him for his success, has brought in more requests flooding in. The princess visits the guild to give them a box filled with jewels as their reward. Helen notes that it seems that she has seen the princess before. This makes Al spit out his juice, and he reasons that the princess has a common look and is not that beautiful. Fall returns disguised as Fellas. She overhears their conversation. She tells Ruri that the princess is not only her competition against Al's affection. The two girls have a stare down as Al escapes to his farm to harvest. They catch up with him and demand he chooses from them. He does not, and they question if there is another woman. He replies that there is. Al goes to present some vegetables to a picture. He talks to the picture of him and a girl named Ilvia. In a flashback, Al recalls the words of his mother about questioning his reason for being a farmer. Al's memories are taken back 15 years in the village of Sills. His father harvests 1 box of potato-like vegetables, while Al was able to harvest 8. His father is surprised by this, but young Al just reasons that he found it fun. His mother notes this and scolds his father for letting Al do all the work. Afterward, Al brings a bag full of vegetables to their neighbors to share. The neighbors are thankful for their family's generosity. Al witnesses a girl caught stealing. The neighbors explain that the girl must be an orphan or abandoned. She must be living in the nearby mountains and lives by stealing food. She might just be given to a slave trader, and if she is let go, she will continue to steal the vegetables from the farm. The girl bites the arm of the man holding her and runs past Al. She grabs the bag Al brought and runs away. The men run after her, but she escapes to the mountains. Al tracks her down and brings her soup. She runs away but smells the aroma of the food, which stops her. Al tells her that he will not take back what she stole and tells her that the vegetable she is eating is bitter due to it being raw. He offers her the soup, but she hides behind a tree. Al leaves the soup for her and she takes it when he leaves. Al continues to bring her cooked food until one day she eats the fish sandwich beside him. Al shares with her how his dad taught him that farmers who grow vegetables find happiness knowing there are people who will eat their produce with a smile. The girl turns out to be Ilvia. As they continue their conversation, Al's stomach grumbles and Ilvia shares the sandwich with him. She tells him that he cannot be happy if he is hungry. Suddenly, the men grab Ilvia from behind. Al begs them to let her go, but they refuse as Ilvia has cost them a lot of their harvest. Al's dad Wayne comes and inquires about what has happened. The men explain that Ilvia has stolen so much from them that even if they sell her to a slave trader, it would not be enough to cover their losses. Wayne decides to give them the rice he was carrying. The men happily agree to the trade, although his father fears Al's mother might murder him for giving away their rice. But Wayne keeps a positive attitude that he will manage whatever his punishment would be. Al admires his dad for this. Ilvia comes in with the bag of vegetables she stole and offers to give it back to them. Wayne winks at Al as he suggests that they may need a hand if all the vegetables were cooked. Al then invites Ilvia to go and stay with them. Ilvia happily accepts. After 2 years, Ilvia and Al were working on the farm. Ilvia tells Al to take a break, but Al insists on continuing. As Ilvia objects, Wayne tells her that Al is a natural farming nut. Ilvia calls Al stupid, but he just encourages her to play with the other village kids. Ilvia insists to be with him. Suddenly, Testa comes running in with a swarm of killer bees following him. Al's mom, Lucica, jumps in and effortlessly kills all the bees. Testa is mesmerized by her actions and calls her beautiful. Wayne warns Testa about hitting on his wife, but Testa says he was just stating his impression. Lucica thanks Testa for the compliment but said she is devoted entirely to Al, which Wayne objects to. She tells Al to take care of the house as they are leaving for the capital to look for a house again. Lucica reasons that as the family is growing, they need a more suitable place to live. Ilvia blushes at the statement. When they leave, Testa shares a map with Al indicating a treasure at the back of the village. He invites Al to go and tempts him by saying he can bring back a jewel for Ilvia. Al agrees, but Ilvia wants to go with them. Al tells her to stay at home because it was dangerous. They leave her on the farm. As they were through the forest, Testa reveals to Al that the villagers do not treat Ilvia really well. She had told Testa not to tell Al about it. Then Al realizes that his parents were looking for a new place to live for Ilvia's sake. They continue on their journey and find nothing but boulders. Testa steps on a stone that opens the ground underneath them. They fall and discover a hidden temple. Al touches a stone tablet with inscriptions they cannot read. The tablet glows and Al finds himself in a dreamlike state where a dragon seems to eat him. A volcano erupts and destroys the forest and the village. Al awakens with Ilvia calling out to him. He has been asleep for a long time and feels weak. Testa comes in and shows Al what has happened. When he collapsed, the volcano erupted and covered everything in ash. They had to be evacuated. The bridge also collapses, isolating them from the capital and other villages. Testa leaves Al when his parents are found. Al walks slowly back to their tent assisted by Ilvia. They overhear a man complaining to the mayor about how the food they were given. The mayor explains that they must ration the food supply as there are very few left and they are still waiting for help to arrive. Al realizes that all the fields have been destroyed and there was not enough food for everyone. Al collapses and Ilvia asks him not to exert himself too much. He apologizes to Ilvia as he knows she is starving. Ilvia assures him that she is okay and it is more important that he is there. She hugs him and cries and tells him not to disappear and leave her alone. At night, Ilvia goes around looking for food. She spies an open tent and peeks in. He sees a man sleeping with food by his side. She attempts to steal it but recalls the moment Al saves her from being sold to the slave traders. She stops herself and leaves the tent. In the morning, she gets their food ration and decides to give her share to Al without him knowing it. She feeds him and he notes how the portion is much larger now. She explains that supplies have arrived from the royal capital and informs him that his parents are also on the way. She tells Al that she is looking forward to eating all the vegetables she grows. She continues to give all her food to Al as the food supplies continue to dwindle. Later on, as Ilvia walks, she collapses and dies, and she professes her love for Al. Testa comes into Al's tent and tells him what has happened. Al is shocked as she had died of hunger. Through Testa, Al realizes that there were no supplies from the capital that arrived and she had given her food to him. He cries at the realization and blames himself. Back in the present, he picks a vegetable as he remembers Ilvia looking forward to eating the vegetables he grew. He uses this memory to inspire him to do his best in farming daily. Now we know why Al always wants to be a farmer, as it brings him memories of his first love. How about you guys? Did your first love inspire you to do something, or were they dear and drove you into the arms of anime girls? Back with Al, he fights a monster and brings one of his quests to a close. As he heads back, he finds a girl laying on the ground. As she is still breathing, he decides not to leave her there. The next day, the girl wakes him up. She asks what she is doing there and where she is. She is scared that Al might have kidnapped her. Exasperated, Al explains how he found her in the forest. He was worried but is relieved that she is now fine. The girl remembers that she was on her way to the Adventurers Guild to issue a request. She tries leaving, but Al offers to escort her there after breakfast as he is on his way there anyway. They get acquainted as Al introduces himself, and the girl turns out to be Linnea Magnol. Ruri goes to visit Al and finds Linnea at the door putting on Al's clothes. She is shocked to see her and gets even more shocked when she apologizes to Al for staining his bed. You guys know that, staining the bed after failing the No Nut November challenge. Ruri runs away from Al's house, calling him an asshole. At the guild, Helen realizes that Ruri must have misunderstood the situation and assures Al she will explain everything to Ruri. Linnea puts in a request to investigate some weird happening in her town. Helen asks her to be more specific, as not every adventurer would like a vague quest. Leanna asks if Al is a strong adventurer. Al says he is just average and actually is a farmer, but he would like to take on the quest as he sees her desperation that she even fainted on the way to the capital. Linnea informs Al that her town is Gal. Al springs up and exclaims that Gal Town is famous for its asparagus type of vegetable. He becomes so excited about the prospect of going to Gal Town. Helen whispers to Lena that Al may be weird, but he should be able to help her. Linnea looks down, seemingly bothered by her statement. Al gives Linnea some clothes, which she thanks him for. She, however, questions his motives and asks if he wants her to marry him in return for being so nice to her. Al is hurt by this accusation and asks her what she thinks of him. Linnea replies that he is a wolf trying to swoop in. Apparently, Linnea's dad has taught her that a man will only help a woman if he has ulterior motives. All men are wolves. Well, she has a good point there. Wolves? Dogs? Potato. Al tries to assure Linnea that his intentions are pure, but Liana says this is a ploy to lull her into a false sense of security according to her father. She holds his hand and said she will just keep a close eye on him. Ruri spies this and gets jealous once more. She is angered that Helen had lied to her. On their way to Gal Town, they learn that the town has no trade with other towns. That's why few merchants are going there. As they continue with their travel, a horde of orcs, led by a female orc, chase after the wagon. Al weakens at the sight and apologizes for it. He feels it is his fault and faints. He wakes up on Linnea's lap and realizes that she put a blue pendant on him. She explains that this pendant helps soothe nerves. They reach Gal Town and she disembarks. The driver tells Al that she took very good care of him while he was out cold. Al thinks about this as they approach the gates. They are stopped by the guards who use mops as their spears. They are allowed to enter after Linnea explains Al is her guest. In the town square, Al sees a merchant selling grilled asparagus and immediately rushes to order one. As he waits for his food, Al inquires if the merchant has noticed anything strange in town. The merchant points out that the whole town is peaceful and hands Al a burnt asparagus skewer. Al complains, but the merchant says it does not matter. He keeps repeating the phrase with strange wide eyes. Another villager who tripped and turned over his vegetable cart also had strange wide eyes when Al tried talking to him. Al realizes that this is what Linnea had meant about the town being strange. Then he gets flipped on his side and is carried off by two hooded figures. Linnea catches up with him near a fountain. Al explains that he got mistaken for cargo and got carried off. Linnea says that these are examples of the strange things happening in her town. She invites Al to go to her house and rest. At the house, she shows Al a pendant that helps ward off evil. This was the same pendant Al had on that she gave. She explains that this might be the reason why they are not affected by whatever has happened to the other townsfolk. Al asks for 2 of the pendants. Linnea explains that there are not enough pendants for the entire town, but he can have the 2 for his investigation. Al inquires where her parents are. She tells him she does not know as they went missing as soon as the anomaly happened in Gal Town. Al promises to investigate their disappearance as well. Linnea starts to tell Al something but decides not to. Back in the town square, Al continues to investigate when the Lord of Foul Town, Remmelholm, talks to them. Al, excited, asks if he is the Rimmel who had started the asparagus revolution that the town is now famous for. Rimmel smiles and notes that Al is also wearing the same pendant as he had on. Al inquires if the Lord knows what has happened, and Rimmel tells him to have dinner at his place to talk about it. Suddenly, Al gets flicked on his side again and carried off as cargo by 2 hooded figures. He shouts that he will visit the Lord later as he is whisked off. Rimmel snidely remarks that he will be looking forward to his visit. Once again, Linnea finds Al near the fountain. He tells her that he really cannot put his guard down. Linnea asks if Al finds the Lord strange. She says that Rimmel is sane but chooses to stay in the town and did not bother to ask for help at all. Al contemplates on this and says they will have answers perhaps during their dinner with him. She tells him that he should not think highly of others, or he'll get taken in by bad people easily. Al says that she should not worry as he will make preparations before going into the Lord's mansion. She looks sad and just agrees with him. At the mansion, they are led to the dining room. They pass through a hallway filled with asparagus paintings and statues. This impresses Al as the Lord really loves asparagus. Rimmel welcomes them to the table. Al wastes no time and asks if he knows anything about what is happening with the town. Rimmel tells them that it is no longer their concern. Guards suddenly surround Al and point their spears at him. Al decides to knock all the guards out. He moves toward the Lord but is stopped by Linnea. She tells him she had warned him not to think highly of others. Rimmel smiles and thanks Linnea for a job well done. He can now proceed to the next step of his plan to rule over all of humanity. Al sees the shadow of Rimmel shaped like a demon. It transforms into Vritra, a noble demon. At this point, he explains that he can take over the thoughts and actions of other beings like Rimmel. He had condensed his power into a crystal and buried it inside the goddess statue fountain in the middle of town. This way, he was able to control more than one person. His next target is the royal capital. He heard a rumor that Romeo and Ouroboros were defeated by a human. If he could plant a crystal in that human, he could rule the humans through him. He points out that capturing Al was part of his plan from the start. Okay, this is way too much talk for a villain again. Al asks Linnea if these were true. Linnea said it was a coincidence that she fainted and got rescued by him. She reveals that Vritra is holding her parents as hostages. Al now realize the whole plot. He stands up and seemingly becomes a willing victim of Vritra's plans. The crystal hovers in front of him. Linnea looks away and recalls their talk at the guild about Al being just a farmer and how he still took on the quest. Linnea has a change of heart and shouts at Al to run, but he stays and breaks a stone, puzzling Vritra. A huge explosion rocks the mansion as the fountain is destroyed and all the soldiers collapse. The crystal also vaporizes and Vritra asks Al what was the stone he just broke. Al explains that the stone was just to communicate to his partners to destroy the statue. Vritra notes that Linnea has spied on him ever since they met and could not have made contact with his partners. Al explains that he broke Linnea's surveillance twice. It turns out that the merchants who took him away were not villagers but Helen and Riru. They had been worried about Al and decided to follow him to Gal Town. They also investigated the strange phenomena in the town. The last time he was carried off, they had explained to Al that the villagers were being controlled by magic from the goddess statue. They had the plan to verify if the Lord was behind all these, and Al would signal them by breaking the stone. This will cause Ruri's stone to sparkle, signaling her to destroy the goddess statue fountain. Linnea realizes that Al had given them the spare crystals to also protect them. Al informs Ritra that Linea's parents were also being rescued, so his plans end tonight. Ritra laughs and controls Remel to put a knife to his throat. Al says that Remel loves the asparagus vegetable so much and takes out a bunch of asparagus. He stuffs them into Remel's mouth, and this breaks his control of Ritra. Remel tears up as he remembers his love of asparagus. Ritra cannot believe that Al has beaten him. Al appears in front of him and punches him through the roof. Next day, Linea thanks Al for saving the town. She lets him keep the crystal as a talisman. She moves in and plants a kiss on Al's cheek. Both Helen and Ruri see this and get jealous. Linea tells Al that she will go to the capital when she is old enough. Even if Al has a girlfriend, she will win him back. Al is once again clueless, as he has again added to his ever-growing harem of admirers. They part ways, but Al is ambushed by Helen and Ruri. Linea smiles and promises to kiss Al on the lips next time. Back at his farm, Al harvests and tastes his tomato-like vegetable. Philia has been staring at the blue crystal necklaces that Helen and Ruri have on. She asks where they got it and is informed that Al gave it to them and all three have it. She also learns about Linea and gets jealous. It looks like the girls are starting to be aware of the harem Al is building. Al screams and they rush to him. It turns out that dark vines have started to encroach on his farm, and he is angered by this development in town. They sell their vegetables to the townsfolk, including Jake the adventurer. The king passes by in a disguise and asks when Al will get married. He bribes him with farmlands and tools. This mesmerizes Al, but Ruri stops him from agreeing. Philia throws a potato to stop Ruri from interfering, but she dodges it. Al gets knocked out by it instead. In a dream, Al sees a mysterious winged lady but is awakened before he gets to know more. Al uses the money they earn to buy pesticides and meets Rick as he is on the way back to his farm. They see slave traders forcing a small girl to go with them, so Al does his thing and saves the girl. The girl turns out to be Princess Julia Macbeth Fongate, the Demon Lord's only daughter. She was teleported there by her guardian, Volp Dorma, who warned her of the danger in the palace. She asks Al to save the demon race. Al leaves Rix to take care of his farm. He runs across the sea with Julia screaming all the way as she cannot swim. They reach the shore and Julia calls him Ani-chan, which reminds Al of Ilvia. They meet Volp Dorma, who attacks them without warning. Al surmises that he is being controlled by someone, so he knocks him out. They start to leave and go to the castle, but Volp Dorma gets up and starts charging up for a powerful magic attack. Al's mom, Lucica, comes in and saves them. Julia explains that Volpe Dorma is the most powerful sorcerer among all the demons who stays with her all the time. She goes on describing what he does, but we might get censored by YouTube bots, so I'll just leave it at that. They reach the castle and discover dead bodies of soldiers all over. Julia rushes into the throne room and finds her father injured and on the ground. Al finds a guard who warns them that Lucica is the female demon who attacked them. She strikes at Julia, but Al, who already knew of the charade, stops her attack. The demon changes to Ilvia, which stuns Al. She explains that the Lord Evil God had resurrected her. Okay, the parallelism here is so pronounced. Running through water, resurrection after death. Is this turning out to be something other than an anime? She attacks Julia, but Al saves her again. The attack slices off a portion of the castle. Ilvia explains that Al has the power of the Lord Evil God inside of him. She promises to tell him everything if he joins their side. Julia intervenes and Ilvia grabs her by the throat. Al tries to stop Ilvia, but he gets knocked back. Ilvia threatens to kill Julia unless Al joins her. Julia tells him to run, so Ilvia releases Ale and starts to strike Julia. Al rushes in and the crystal necklace glows and seemingly stops time. The mysterious lady reappears and introduces herself as the good goddess. She grants Al his power and seals the evil god's power within him. She leaves and turns back time for Al to save Julia. She reminds him to stop the evil god's plan. Time unfreezes and Al casts a spell to stop Ilvia. Vines sprout up, surprising Ilvia. She laughs and realizes that the good goddess has intervened, but says the spell is too silly to stop her. The vines suddenly reach out to her and tie her up and safely catches Julia. Ilvia breaks free and tries attacking them again. Al blocks her with the vines and again entangles her with it. Volpdorma arrives and unleashes a spell hitting Ilvia. But the attack does not kill her and she attacks Volpdorma, but Al's shout stops her. She decides to leave and promises to meet Al alone next time. After everything settles down, Al informs them that Ilvia is his sister and asks them about the evil god. This king knows that the god is connected with their ancestors, but all historical records have been lost. He promises Al to inform him if he finds out more information. Al takes his leave but promises to see Julia once again. At the royal capital, Princess Fowl is changing to her Philia disguise as she plans to leave the palace once more. Irby, her maid, once again must take her place. Al walks back to his farm contemplating what Ilvia meant by that he had met the evil god before. He deduces that it must be the time when he discovered the hidden temple with Testa when they were kids. He goes to Testa and asks him about the cave they visited. He inquires if he saw anything else back then. But Testa says Al just collapsed and the volcano erupted. Al invites Testa to the palace, but he declines as he has to go fishing. When Al leaves, Testa tells himself that he is thankful for the invitation, but he cannot leave just yet. Al walks through a shortcut in the forest. A female orc attacks and Al decides to punch it, but his one-hit punch does not work. Fortunately, the adventurers were there to save him. They reach the guild and discuss how Al cannot seem to defeat the orcs. Helen asks to see his status card and notes that its value decreased. Al realizes that this must be the effect of sealing the evil god's power. Helen wonders how it decreases, but is still happy it is higher than most adventurers. Rix comes in and gives him a letter from his mom. The letter threatened the two girls reading the letter, but also tells Al that his mom is investigating all the things happening to him as well. Rix leaves and Philia comes in. She invites Al for a walk, which Helen and Ruri notes as unfair. They have drinks with the adventurers and Al wonders what happened in the past few days. Meanwhile, Ilvia spies on him from a tower and says she is waiting for him. And with that, the season 1 ends. Subscribe for the next part, which we'll be making once the anime studio makes second season. Until then, stay safe. Bye.